All right, let's begin. It is straight up on the hour, and as Gloria has just reminded us, it's not morning for everybody. And I've jokingly said for a long time I don't do a very good job of speaking time zone, and there's Herman from part of our international audience from the Netherlands, who is constantly enjoying the fact that I don't do time zones real well, and he's always reminding me of that, and I appreciate it. So, if you are on with us this morning, let us know who you are, where you're from, and how are things with you this morning. Always enjoy this part of the Friday webinars. So let's see. We have Herman, obviously from the Netherlands, because I just mentioned him. Andrew Anderson, who says good morning. And obviously we have Gloria on with us. She's been very active in the chat, welcoming people this morning. And Stephanie is joining us as well. So that's Stefan. I'm sorry. This was an interesting morning for me. Just as I got ready to start, I wiped something on my glasses, and I thought I better clean that off before we get started because I'm going to need to be able to see. And I picked up something that I thought was glass cleaner, and it has caused me to choke and cough and carry on this morning. So I apologize for any of that kind of noise that might be happening. Just a series of interesting events. So let's see, we have Linda is joining us from Tulsa, and we have Nabi from Australia. Yes, it's late in Australia. I have a friend that we do live feeds together sometimes early, and she's from Australia, and it's always midnight when we get done. So that's always kind of interesting, that opposite side of the planet. So Michael is joining us from Austin, Texas. Carol from PA. We have both the Carols. We always have two Carols on, Carol from PA and Carol from Corpus Christi. And I've seen both of you this morning. Stephen's joining us from the foggy city by the bay, which is early morning for y'all. And I really appreciate you coming on and being a part of this. And some of you, like we've already mentioned from Nabi, from this is late at night for you. And so our international folks, we always appreciate you joining us because we know it's a commitment to do that, and we appreciate that commitment very much. And Vanessa's joining us from Atlanta. So good to have you all on today. We have a good little crowd joining us this morning for our Friday weekly live training webinar. We've already seen Sam on, and so good group of people, kind of our regular folks sometimes. And so today we have an interesting agenda for you. And but before we do that, I want to mention a couple of things. While we're on that screen, I have changed the note at the beginning because of our new webinar platform. And that note says that if you have a question, be sure to precede that question with either the capital Q or a question mark, a series of question marks, so that it's easy for Gloria and I both to identify that. And because we don't want to miss your questions. Sometimes people say, well, if you would stick to the agenda. Well, our agenda is mostly to answer your questions. And so we want to make sure that we give you that opportunity. That's the benefit of a live training. Otherwise, we just do a video. And I don't know that people really enjoy the videos as much as they do the live interactive training. And so sometimes we venture away from the agenda a little bit simply because we are helping you with issues that you seem to feel like are important for you. And that's the purpose of this webinar, is to help you to get plugged into all of the amazing creative things that you can do with GiveSign. And speaking of amazing creative things, we want to talk about our guest feature for just a moment. And so that guest feature is we want to interview people and see how they're using Usign or GiveSign in their work. Or in the things that they do. So if that's you, we certainly want to connect with you so that we get a chance to feature and highlight your work. Okay. And when we complete that, you'll get a copy of the interview, the video interview that we do. We'll play that interview during the course of the webinar. I'm trying to figure out how to use those sometimes as just little clips of those in the beginning, in the intro to the webinar, and that would be kind of cool when we get a chance to do that. Gloria said it's a lot of fun being interviewed by Eric, and hopefully it is a fun experience. It's a little different and it's a little awkward sometimes, but I do my best to try to make you feel relaxed and comfortable in the process of the interview, and then you have that interview as something that you might be able to use in your promotion as well. Okay. And then if you are not, if that you just don't feel comfortable that you're the right person for that, then feel free to nominate somebody. You see people's work, you know, people in the group or in both of our groups, the gift signers group and the U-signers group. So feel very comfortable, feel good and feel good about nominating somebody. That's how we got Herman. We were going to do, we were going to interview today Gene, and I did do the interview with Gene and was able to video record that. Gene's kind of got a step-by-step process, and so the editing on it is pretty detailed. We're not going to be able to show Gene's video today because my internet upload speed is just about as fast as smoke signals right now. But I did have a conversation with the installer for Google Fiber, who has promised me that that will be history by Wednesday of next week. And so if we get a chance to do that, okay, Andrew, this is what you have to do. It's really simple. It's not hard to do, but I want you to send me a private message on Facebook so that I can give you the details as to how we do that. And the way we do it is pretty simple. I send you a link to a Zoom link to the Zoom platform. We record that on Zoom because it allows you to be able to share a screen. It puts your face on. It does all the stuff that we need to be able to do to make a really good experience. And then I edit that video. And as I was saying, I did the video with Gene. I was in the process of editing it when I got news that a young man in my church, and for those of you who don't know, I do pastor a church on the weekends, and so got a note that a young man in my church was on the verge of death. And so I just before I went live today, I got an update on what was going on, but I spent most of the day yesterday in the hospital, at the hospital, not in the hospital, but at the hospital, helping the family with the process that they're going through right now. So quite challenging, and just appreciate your patience with that. So I will get that done. The problem was that it takes almost 3 hours for me to upload a 10-minute video to YouTube. Hopefully by next Wednesday, it won't take me 3 hours to upload. It'll take me less than 3 minutes. So I'm looking at this question here. Could you... Yeah, that's kind of a good idea. We've done that a little bit in the past, Stephen. That's a good idea, though. Yes, that's a good idea. Several months ago, I did what makes a Facebook ad a good Facebook ad, and I have 2 file folders that I keep on my desktop, which I don't want to use today, but I have 2 file folders I keep on my desktop: the really good ads and the really bad ads. And you know, bad ads becomes a really interesting file folder name, but I have those 2 that I keep track of those in. The criteria is pretty simple, Vanessa. It's a good question. The criteria is pretty simple. We want to show how you're using either U-Sign or GiftSign. We want to feature the work that you do. This has got to be something that you do not just for yourself, not just for your own entertainment, but you do it for the benefit of somebody else. Either it's a part of the job that you do, or it's part of, we call them power users, or it's something that you're selling to the public, or it's a feature that you are selling to clients. Okay, but that's the criteria. It's pretty simple. We just want to know that people, not only that have you made an investment in U-Sign or GiftSign, but that investment is making back a benefit to you. And you know, we did. Stephanie was on. I don't know if she's on this morning or not, but Stephanie was on. Stephanie gets paid for some of the work that she does, but she also does that on behalf of several of the clients that she has. So she doesn't get paid directly for the work, but she gets paid indirectly because they're her clients, and so it's a benefit that she provides to them as well. So that's part of the criteria. So next week we will have Gene Carey, that was an amazing interview with him. I just want to make sure that the editing is correct and that I have time to be able to upload that. And I could not pull that off with the events that were taking place over the weekend. So we'll definitely look forward to having that next week. Okay. But if those of you who are asking want to be interviewed, that's the process. If you forget how to do that, send a support ticket to Gloria. She'll be glad to answer that for you. Okay. Yeah, it was a really fun interview. Gene, did you enjoy that interview? Let people know that was it was easier than you thought it was going to be. There's a few details to it, but yeah, it was easier than we thought it was going to be. Yeah, the upload speeds are killing us right now on YouTube. Okay, all right. I want to do a really quick little GIF sign poll. Okay, I need your help with this. This is a poll. I need you. Hey, Tyree, good to see you. Good to see you this morning, Tyree. Glad that you could be on. Gene said it wasn't as painful as a root canal. All right, here's my little GIF sign poll. I need you to help me with this. The first question, and we're going to separate these by a bit. So, Gloria, if you'll put a note in there that these are going to be the Cinemograph question, okay? So if you'll just drop a note there that we're going to do the Cinemograph poll first. And so if you are currently using the Cinemograph feature, put a 1 in for a yes, okay? If you're not using that Cinemograph feature, put a 2 in. So either 1 or 2. All right, we're getting good response to this. Thank you so much for this. This is very helpful to us, because I think sometimes people are not using it because they don't know how. So if that's true, then what we're going to do is we're going to spend a little time one day on using that Cinemograph feature so that we make sure that we direct this to an actual need that you have. So make sure that you respond yes or no. And if the answer is no, don't hesitate to tell me, but you would love to. Just put in there, but I would love to, and that would be helpful to us. We'll focus on that. We'll take a Friday live training and we'll focus a little bit of attention on the Cinemograph feature. It's not real complicated to use, but it is a nice thing. And we have several people who've demonstrated some of their work. Herman has done that. Gene has done that. Gloria has done that. Others have done that with their Cinemograph capabilities. So we'd love to be able to highlight that. Okay. Now, second question. All right, Gloria, you ready to do this? Second question is, this is going to be the GIF versus MP4 question. So here's my question to you. Do you know when to use a GIF and when to use an MP4? Because this sometimes baffles people, okay? Why would I want to create a GIF if I could just put an MP4 in? So if you know the answer to that, answer yes. If you don't know the answer to that, simply state no or B. All right, we're kind of watching here. Gene says auto reply. All right, we're gonna talk about this just a little bit this morning, okay? We'll talk about that just a little bit, as the difference between using a GIF and using an MP4. All right, good. Now let's go to the next thing. And give you a little bit of updates here. We're going to talk about future training on using the Cinemograph feature. So we'll do that in a little bit. We won't do that today, but we'll do that in a little bit. That's what I needed for this for the updates here. Now, I want to show you. We're going to address the answer, the question that y'all were saying here a minute ago, that you didn't know when to use an MP4 versus when to use a GIF. So we'll address that. I'm going to give you two samples, one in a WordPress site and one on a landing page builder, and show you when those things become really, really good. Okay, let's take a look here. All right. And then finally, on our agenda today, I'm going to finish the conversation about editing tools. I have been amazed how many questions simply talking about the editing tools has turned up. But I've got a list of things that we have not finished, and so we'll be doing that today as well. And then we'll be done with the editing tools. But so many questions that people ask can simply be answered by understanding how the editing tools work. And when you have mastered those tools, there's so many things that you can do that you just never dreamed were possible before. Okay, so that'll be part of our tips and tricks. And then any questions that you have, make sure that you do the little question thing as you go, and put the either the capital Q or the question mark, and we'll take it from there. And Gloria, who does a masterful job, will stay on top of that for us. Okay, so let me switch my screen here, and we'll go to the design canvas, and we'll move on. All right, give me just a second to do this. Let's see. I'm going to start with the GIF sign window. All right. Now, this is, I'm using from here, I'm using this mock-up. I could use any of these mock-ups that I would like here, but try to keep your mock-up so it's consistent with what you're doing, okay? If I'm going to ask a survey question, then I probably don't want to use this mock-up. You know, keep your mock-ups so that they work with what you're doing. And if you're trying to demonstrate something, some computer capability, we've given you some great mock-ups to be able to use here. So make sure that you take advantage of those. And I just wanted to park there for a second and show you that to make sure that you do that. Now, what I have done here, and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, I've taken some MP4s and I've turned them into GIFs. All right, here's an example of a brief MP4 that I had, and I turned this into a GIF. Okay, now there's plenty of things that you can do with that, because if I want to have this playing in a continuous background, if I want it to play in a continuous background, then the best way to do that is to do it with a GIF rather than do it as an MP4, because an MP4 would cause me to have a player embedded. Okay, that's part of it. The other part of it, there's two steps to this. Part of it is that I would have to have a player embedded, and I don't need to do that with a GIF sign. Okay, I don't need to do it with a GIF, and so I can create my GIF, and then I can play it directly on my sales page. As you see right here, this is a landing page builder, and I just simply dropped that image, the GIF sign image, which is saved as a .gif. I dropped that image into this as an image, and it plays directly inside of my landing page. And I just did this as a quick test for a landing page, and I dropped this in here so you could see that. Does that make sense to everybody? I can just simply take my text, and it will continue to play continuously. If this is an MP4, which is how I created it, if this is an MP4, then you have to stop and start it, or try to get it embedded on autoplay, which doesn't always work correctly. And then you end up with other things that happen if you store that on YouTube. Then you get YouTube ads that will pop up and that kind of a thing. So does that make sense? That if you want something that plays continuously, and Gene tipped his hand a while ago by saying if you want an autoplay, then you definitely want to save it as a GIF. Okay. Now, in this case, just simply doing it from here and not trying to create this in Jiffy or somewhere else, by just dropping the image in here, I have no distortion and it looks fine. Okay, so this eliminates that distortion question that was being asked a while ago. Very, very simply, by dropping that in as an image, then I have put that in a place that makes a ton of sense, and it'll just sit there and play continuously. Now, what this is doing is encouraging people to click on the button. Right? Are y'all with me? Now, the question has come up again about replays, and I wanted to talk about that briefly this morning while I was on the agenda, so I'm going to throw it in here now, because again, this is one of those interactive things that you don't think about before you do the webinar, but we are having a little bit of a change take place with the new webinar platform that we're using. So occasionally you'll end up, yes, Gene, you're right, that there is no audio. Make sure that you allow a little bit of time, and maybe watching the group to see when we post that webinar, because doing the process that we were doing in the past did not work last week. We couldn't upload the webinar the way we have in the past, and so give us just an opportunity like Monday or Tuesday before we have a chance to see that, so we can do that. Okay, but we'll try to put the link in the Facebook group. We want to make the Facebook group a place that's a tremendous resource for you. Now let's go back to talking about here. This is a great way to use this GIF. If I'm not going to have an audio, if an audio is not necessary, like in this particular feed right here, an audio is not necessary. I'm just trying to get people to click on the survey button. All right, I could have put a down arrow key to point to the button, but in this case, an auto play is hugely beneficial because it's a continuous reminder. It's playing in a continuous loop, and this is all text, and so it makes it really easy for people to know what they're supposed to do next. All right, does that make sense to everybody? Okay, that's a good way to state that, Steve. It might be easier to turn this upside down and say, when does an MP4 make more sense? MP4 makes more sense if I have to have an audio. You know, if it's something that I don't want, I want this to catch people's attention. I want them to know what to do next. Sometimes the MP4, I only want to play that video when people are ready to take that action, or ready to do that step, or ready to get that information. So let me check the questions here, because this is something that I don't know that we use these enough for. Okay. The answer to that question, Linda, is yes. What I have done right here is I just simply uploaded that as an image into this page builder. Okay, this happens to be a page builder. We worked with this page builder almost a year ago, and I fell in love with it. And so this is all I did here was I simply took my image and I dropped it in that page builder as an image, and it plays directly from there. Let me show you another example of this. I'm gonna click over to. I just threw this page together before this morning. And this is a good example of the same thing. This is just the image. I loaded the image in my media folder on a WordPress file. I took that image and I just dropped it in. When it says add media, I dropped it in right as an image, and it plays right there. Okay? So yeah, and this eliminates an awful lot of those distortion images and trying to put it in Jiffy and create a link and an embed link and all of that kind of stuff. This just works perfectly. It just seems to work perfectly. Okay. So what software did this was just a simple little screen share software that I used, Tyree. Uh, really simple stuff. Yeah, and I try to avoid promoting a brand while I'm doing this, unless it's GiftSign or Usign. But yes, there's lots of ways to create that. All right, let's see. What other questions do we have here? Did I miss a question? Okay, Linda, have I answered your questions correctly? All right, let's see here. All right, good. Okay, so very simple stuff. I just dropped this in as an image. I loaded it into my media player exactly as it downloads from GIFsign. When you download from GIFsign, I'm going to go back here and show you that. When you download from GIFsign, wait a minute, got to pull this up here. When you download from GIFsign, which I will have for you here in just a second, when I click on any one of these, this is what we did last week, and amazingly enough, there was a question that was got asked in the group about how do you do the images to create letters out of the images, and so that was last week's topic actually. But if I want to put the player around the outside of it, then this is what I do. I go to the mockup. All right. If I don't want to put the player around the outside of it, I can just simply download it from here. And I don't know if you see this or not, but when it downloads that .gif, then I can use that. I can upload that directly in my media player. If I go here to the mockups, and what I do is I click on preview, it will build that GIF with the mockup around the outside of it. We'll give it a second to do that again. My internet speed is killing me these days. And then I just click on this, and it allows me to download that with the mock-up around the outside of it. Okay? So that's the process that you go through to do that. And when you do that, what you're doing is you're building a GIF that you can then upload into just about anywhere that you want to upload it that will take an image like that. Okay, so let's see, what do we got? We got some questions here. Let me go back to a different screen here. Yeah, this is a great way to use a GIF or funnel. It's a great way to do that because it plays continuously. Yes, it plays in exactly the same place you would normally put a static image. And so I load that. I'm not going to load up the WordPress site that I have right here, but it loads up and plays exactly where you would normally put a static image, and it plays just exactly like you see that playing on your screen right now. All right, good. So that takes care of that question, because I just felt like we needed to address that question as to when's a good time to use GIFs and when's a good time to use an MP4. Yeah, and doing flowcharts really works out well. If you take a look at this is what I did right here. I don't have anything playing around the outside of this, so it's just kind of sitting there running. but you'll see that this is a funnel. And a friend of mine asked me about building funnels, and I created this in about 3 minutes and dropped it in Messenger and Facebook, and he was thrilled. So that's a great way to be able to do that kind of a thing. It was easier than doing screenshots, trying to put something together, make a video. I could just do that, and so that worked out really, really well. Yeah, I agree, Gene. That would be an interesting use of a GIF to create one and then pin it, post it in Facebook, and then pin it to the top of your page so that people saw that when they logged in. Very good idea. Very good idea. All right. Anything else I'm missing here? Yep. The mock-ups are really easy to do, Tyree. They're really easy to do, and we've got tons of really cool mock-ups. Make sure that your mock-ups, kind of as I said earlier, kind of match what you're trying to do, the message that you're trying to convey, but they make them look really, really good. Now, I could have done that with the one that's playing on your screen right now. I just didn't do it because I was rushing to set this up. But you did see how I did one here. I put this in here because I'm trying to get comments, and and in this case, we had it playing we've got this video playing inside of a mock-up as well. Okay. Any other questions before we move on? Yes, I agree, Steve. They look very professional when you do that. Um, I completely agree. Okay, then what we're going to do next is we'll switch over to our design screen, and inside of our design screen, I've got to make this a little bit larger so I can see everything inside of the design screen. Now, at this point, I lose my ability to be able to see you make comments. So we'll do our best to try to stay caught up on the things that you may ask as we go. Okay? Okay, good question, Tom. How did I get the video to scroll down? What I simply did was I did a screen capture. To do that funnel video that I have playing right there, to do that, I did a screen capture. I opened up that funnel image that I have because it's way larger than my screen is. I opened up that funnel image and I just scrolled through it as I go. Okay? And that allowed me to go from the top of the funnel all the way to the bottom. And I captured that. I did a screen capture. When you open up GIF sign and you're ready to make a GIF, what they do is they ask you, do you want to upload a video or do you want to do a screen capture? I did a screen capture. I scrolled through the screen capture, and then I saved that, and that became the image for that funnelology GIF that I just showed you on the screen. Pretty cool way to use it. It's a pretty cool tool. It is an amazingly beneficial tool for us, and I'm just thrilled to death that we have that and the capabilities of being able to do it, because it's opened up my eyes to some tremendous possibilities of things that I wanted to play continuously, and I wanted to catch people's attention. And so I thought that today we'd bring that up because I thought it was important. Yes, so the scroll then became the GIF. That's a good question, Linda. The scroll then became the GIF. And that's what I did. I just simply opened that up, and if when we get finished today, I have enough time, I will actually show how I did that. Okay, so that we can make that part of the process today. The problem is that trying to show that gets really complicated because it's two different application windows. So I probably can't do that. That's one of those things that is very difficult to do on a live webinar like this. But yeah, that's how we do it. Okay, so back over here, let's talk about a couple of things that we forget sometimes, and that is, let's take a picture, let's take an image here, and let's use the crop tool. All right, now let's say I want to take this image and I want to do something cool with this image like this, okay? And I want to save this cropped like that. So I click on Save to Library, and where it's going to save it when I click on Crop. Because I don't think we use this tool enough, and sometimes I see people asking questions that would be easy to answer if they had if they understood how this crop tool worked. Okay, I'm looking for. All right, now we have this image right here. Okay, so let's play with this a little bit. This is, by the way, this is just one of those unashamed dad things. That's my daughter. Just in case maybe you wanted to know. Probably didn't, but in case you wanted to know. Now I've got this right here. Okay, and I want to move this to the background, because I see where she's at right here. So let's see if we can use some tools and make this work. If I put a border around this, I'm going to have trouble, okay? Because the border is just going to go around the image. But if I decide that I want to save this part right here, then I need to find a way to be able to crop out that image. So what I'm going to do, there's a couple of things that this is one of those, there's other ways to do this, but this is learning to use the tools that you have available to you. So let's go over here and see if we can find something that might be helpful to us. And I don't have a heart shape. All right, so I'm going to take a circle here, and I'm going to enclose this circle. Or I'm going to create a circle right here, so that what I'm going to do with this is that's now in the position where I wanted my daughter to be. Okay, so if I save this as an image, save this as an image, and I'm going to use my erase tool. Okay, so now I'm going to upload this image, and hopefully my internet speed will not kill me in this process. When I'm doing the webinar, the speed at Usign becomes horribly, speed everywhere becomes horrendously slow, because it's using tons and tons of resources to make this happen. So that's the image. I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff now that I had back here, and those are going to go away. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this image like it was right here, and I'm going to erase the center. By the way, for a long time, we had continuous updates going on with Usign. And we had multiple updates going on all the time. And people got really used to having those multiple updates. And what happens is, as a platform gets bigger and bigger, it gets more complicated to make those updates as quickly as we have in the past. So ask you all to be very patient with us as we do that. Now I'm going to save. I've eliminated that dot in the middle. Okay. We're going to combine some tools in a simple task here. But it gets larger and it gets harder to manage when you do that, manage those continuous updates. So we're going to switch this background to transparent. So now I have that image there. Move it out here just a little bit. Take the image that I have saved here, and we'll put it right here. Okay. Now, I'm going to move that to the back. And I'm going to, well, I need to move it back to the front because I want to make it smaller. I'm getting pretty close now. Make this smaller now. The other thing I want to do, just for fun, is I'm going to make my background the same color as this rose. Okay. So if I go right there, click on that, make that non-transparent. Now I'm starting to make some progress here. All right. Anybody? Question Steven's asking, is it possible to duplicate and shrink the heart image slightly and overlay them to fill in the differences of heart-shaped border using layers somehow? Yes, the answer to that question is yes, I can do that. I could duplicate this. That's the duplicate tool, which we can use as much as we want to. And we can do some pretty cool stuff with this. For example, let me move this out of the way. For example, what we can do is we can take this and make this larger so it fills this up. And we can make this more transparent like here. And we can make this one, you can reduce the transparency on it a little bit. And then we start playing with the transparency, and you see the effect that you get when you do that. So let's make this just a little bit larger. And so now what we have is kind of like that. We'll grab this image, we'll put it right here. Like that. That's what Steven's asking, and obviously we could make that look amazing. But what you can then do is you just simply click on each of the images, save them as a group so they're easy to deal with. So now I can move the whole thing. Well, I missed one of them, but I can move the whole thing around now and do some pretty cool stuff with. I guess I had an extra image there. And then I go to this, and now I take my blur tool and I start to blur this background. I've got the now I can start to play with this a little bit, move these things around and do some pretty interesting stuff with it. Okay, so I can move this to the back so I don't have that in the issue. Get rid of this extra one that's here. So now I have these together. And you can begin to play with that in an interesting way. So is there any questions? You see what's going on right here? Yes, and we could just keep playing with that. We can make that as big or as little as you want to. I could take this right here, and I could start to shrink that down. And you can get this kind of where you want it. Move this to the front. And you see what we're doing here, okay? You can make this like this. However we want to do that. But it becomes a kind of an interesting way to do that. And using and again, we're combining the blur tool, we're combining the duplicate tool, we're using the opacity here, we're changing the opacity as we go. And each of those things collectively become amazing tools as we do this. All right. Now, the other thing we can do is we can also crop this image here, and we can customize the size, and we can make that so that it fits. All right, and there's some things that we can do with that. So before I get to that, let me see what we got here. Yeah, you can see there's just interesting stuff that you can do here. Now but do you understand where we're going with this? I mean, how I've taken the crop tool and I've taken the duplicate tool, I've used the opacity tool, and I've used the blur tool. Now, if you lay that on a background, now you put this you put that color background back on here, and I go to a filter here, and I can filter this. Now, do you see what happens with this? I mean, this is pretty cool stuff, right? I mean, now you've got some interesting things that you can do. Now, if I had time, we'd take some. I mean, we would make this. We could turn this into something absolutely amazing by doing that. All right, but let's just taking a look at it right here. This is pretty. You can see where we can go with this. There's some really interesting things that we can do with that. So let's go back. Let's take the same image. We'll get rid of all of this now. We'll take this same image and we'll do something with it here. Turn this background back on transparent, and we'll go over here to the uploads, and let me find that picture again. And this, because this came up in last week's question and got asked at the very end. But if I wanted to, if I had this image, well, let's see, do I have one of those? I don't think I do. If I had an image that I do have, I'll take, I can't take that one either. That's an ugly guy. I don't want to do with that guy. If I had an image that I could flip, I can do it with this. You can take this image, and I can do a couple of things with an image like this. I can duplicate this and move this one out of the way. I can duplicate this one, make it slightly larger like this, and then reduce the opacity on this one like that. And then I can position this in here, which is kind of the question that Stephen was asking a while ago. And yeah, you can start to do that, okay? The other thing that you can do is, and we talked about this one last week, I could actually take this, duplicate that, and then flip it. And I can create this to be a bit of a reflection. And with a little bit of juggling, I can make that reflection look pretty cool. Okay, so those are things that we've done several times. Okay, let's see. Can you continue with making it amazing next week, then, please? Okay, all right, we'll do that. We'll do that, Carol. I can do that because I think that's pretty cool. Petra, we discussed t-shirt designs some time ago. Might be a good time for us to look into that again, but we have done that in the past. Now, one more thing to remember, I can group these two together so I can move them around collectively. I can also resize them. So don't forget how powerful that tool is. Okay, any other questions? What are we missing here? Because believe it or not, we're starting to get up against the time here. There's one more thing I did want to discuss. One more thing I did want to discuss, and I was planning on doing it a minute ago with this image, so let me reload this. If you want to take something like this, and you want to add a curved text to it. Click on the curved text. This is a feature I don't think we're using enough. I look at people's designs and I occasionally see a curved text, but not very often do I see curved text. And so I can take this curved text and that gets really, really crowded. So let's play with this now. And what we're going to do is we'll take that text and we'll begin to adjust the size of it, okay? And when I get to 180, it becomes the half a circle right there. So now I could actually take this on around like this and make that look like that. I can move it all the way around and have it completely, almost completely, there's not enough text to do it, but almost completely circle her. Okay? Getting close. But that's the curved text tool. And again, that's something that we don't, I just don't think that we do enough. And we probably should talk about it a little more than we do and the capabilities of that curved text tool. Now, there's some limitations. Not all of the fonts look right with it, and not all of them can you bold print. Sometimes you can alternate your text so that it reads that way, which is not good. But you get my point. That's the reason why if you're going to go all the way around in a circle, you don't want to make it read like that. All right. All right, is there anything else? Yeah, cursive text does not look good. There's several text fonts that don't look right here, and as you play with this just a little bit, you'll see what I'm talking about. See, that looks great. This looks fine. But just the thing to do is just go through and kind of look at them and see which one of these is going to be the best. And you can adjust your text size a little bit. But there's some of these that just don't look right at all. See, it just doesn't read quite right when you do that. But if we go back here to 180, and if I had cropped this image, we'll do this quickly. If I had cropped the image here in a circle, we'll go back to the crop, switch to a circle. And we'll save that. Yes, Gloria, that's just really, really cool. Can you curve the text in a GIF sign? We several months ago, Linda, we did a webinar on integrating the two platforms and creating transparent text, and that's what Gene's interview is about, using transparent text. And that's the reason why I used that little clip from his comment, is the ability to be able to use transparent backgrounds is really beneficial in Usign. So let me get this here, get rid of that. I've got a circle here and I have my text. So I want to match my circle to the text. And you can see how we're doing that, okay? And you have to play with it and juggle it a little bit in order to make it work exactly like you want it. But we're pretty close. Does that make sense? Are you all with me? Linda, not a problem. What we do is really simple, and I'll show you. In this case, what I would do if I wanted that circle text and I wanted to create a GIF with this, I would actually get this so that it was tight, all right? And so I would change the height so that I would crop this. So I would save this way. Save it as a ping background, okay? So that I've got a transparent background. Now I can take that. I've got just enough time to do this, so I will. I can take that and switch screens for a second. See if I still have that up. I don't know if I have it or not. Hang on just a second. It takes longer to do these screen changes than it does to do the actual work. So now let's take this. Don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but I know I have this. So let me grab a, I have a video that I was playing with earlier. So I'm going to throw this video in here. Are you all seeing that? Are you seeing my GIFs on screen? Yes. Okay, good. Yeah, I wanted to resize the canvas, but I forgot where I was at with that, so I didn't get a chance to do that. So now I upload that image, and I have the image somewhere. Where did it go? I probably uploaded it somewhere where I didn't want it to go. There. And I now have that curved text integrated in here. Okay? Not exactly sure why I have that dark background on it. But we're limited on how far we can go there. So now if I preview this, let's see what it looks like. But that's what you do. You save a transparent background. You have to save it as a PNG file. And when you've saved the background as a PNG file, and somebody just threw the boat anchor out on my upload speed. That's what I did. I applied a filter to my design. So, oh well. You're right. Thank you, Gloria, for paying attention. I was in a hurry. I was trying to do this. And it looks like, can you still hear me? Because usually the first thing to suffer is my voice. Usually the audio goes down. All right. I don't know. We're struggling with uploads. And this is not a GIF sign issue. This is an internet issue because it's going really sporadic. But yes, I left the filter on, Gloria. You're correct. And that was not what I intended to do. But don't leave your filter on when you're going to do that. But you can see how now we have the curved text is superimposed over the top of the GIF. All right. Not a good image because the guy doing the webinar forgot to take the filter off, but you get my point. Okay. So yes, that's what you do is you create a transparent background, not one with a filter, and you do it like that. All right. Any other questions before we go? We're right up against the hour. Great questions today. Great opportunity for us to be able to develop some new skills. Highly encourage you all to use the curved text. It's fun. Use the transparent backgrounds. Remember to remove your filter. Make sure that you do those things. But hopefully we gave you some things today that will be helpful to you just using. And the only thing that we were using here was we were just using the editing tools. Nothing new, nothing mysterious, just the editing tools. And so really wanted to be able to help you to say, hey, there's a lot of things I can do inside of Usign if I just understand the editing tools and if we learn to play with the editing tools. And so next week, we'll take Carol's suggestion. And what we'll do next week is that we'll run up against the how do we make that thing look pretty, because we want to make sure that it looks really cool. We can make a pretty awesome thing. And for that, when we put the video up with Gloria on it, you'll get a chance to see some of the really cool stuff that she did. So in the meantime, y'all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for joining us today. I can't thank you enough for what you do and how you contribute to make these webinars the reality. You're very, very helpful to us, and you're very encouraging, and I thank you for that. Feel free to share your designs in the group. I encourage you to do that, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. We'll be back here next Friday, same time, same place, maybe with my grandson in the background. But we'll see you then. Okay? Thank you for joining us today.